on the new treaty that's coming into force on areas beyond national jurisdiction. But we have been trying to participate in the next phases now in terms of the role that we can play as CMS in engaging with BBNJ. This is a very important topic, especially work we have done to identify key areas for sharks, turtles, and whales, because those can help us prioritize what areas need to be protected under future proposed marine protected areas. Turning to avian species. So we started some years ago with work on illegal killing of birds in the Mediterranean. That work has been expanded to 2 other parts of the world. This is again with voluntary funding, otherwise we could not do this work. One is in Southwest Asia, and the other is in the Asia Pacific. We have also been doing a lot of work on global flyways, including in the Americas. And we had a wonderful meeting in Brazil some time ago now, it seems like years ago, in Florianopolis. By the way, non-parties to CMS participated in that meeting, including the United States experts and others. And again, we will be discussing the launch of a new Atlas for the Americas that we've been developing. We've also been doing a lot of work on birds of prey, raptors. The Saker Falcon Task Force has made notable progress in developing an adaptive management framework which is aimed at ensuring that any legal taking is done in a well-managed way, as well as the Step Eagle Global Action Plan, which provided expert guidance to over 62 range states. We've also been doing a lot of work, research and conservation for the sooty falcon. Turning finally to our terrestrial friends. Next slide, please. So, one, we've done quite a bit of work in Central Asia with the leadership of the presidency of Uzbekistan. And together with partners and governments, we facilitated the development and endorsement of new work programs and action plans for all species covered by the Central Asian Mammal Initiative, adopting a new approach that identifies priority transboundary conservation regions. The last species is the jaguar, last but not least. And in cooperation with the CITES Secretariat, the CMS Secretariat convened discussions among all jaguar range states, including an in-person range state meeting in Mexico City. This has resulted in the development of a regional action plan developed by all range states for jaguar conservation, the first of its kind, which was just adopted yesterday by the 57th Standing Committee meeting of CMS, and it will be considered by this COP along with an updated resolution, as well as other measures for next steps on different aspects of this cooperation that need to be finalized for the future. Let me conclude by saying, and this is just a snapshot of some of the major work, again, this work could not have been possible without voluntary funds, without the core staff that we have, and without the many help of experts, scientists, policy experts that have taken their time and knowledge to contribute to this incredible community called CMS, and to allow us to continue to advance our knowledge and the action that are being taken. So as we look ahead, the Secretariat, of course, remains fully committed to supporting parties in taking forward the decisions and other outcomes of this conference into tangible outcomes and results. So I want to say thank you to everyone, and in particular to the team at the CMS Secretariat for the incredible work that you have all done, plus all of the staff that supported that work in the different administrative parts of our house, because it has really been phenomenal, the work that has been able to be accomplished in this period. So thanks to all, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Franco. We shall now move to agenda item 8, reports on recommendations of the subsidiary bodies of the convention. I invite the chair of the CMS Standing Committee from the Government of the United Kingdom to report on the activities of the Standing Committee since COP15.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, as Chair of the Standing Committee, it's my honour to report on the work of the Standing Committee during the intersessional period between COP14 and COP15. This has been an unusually compressed cycle, with just 1 year between COP14 and our 56th Standing Committee meeting, held in Bonn from the 25th to the 27th of March 2025. Despite this shortened time frame, the committee has remained fully engaged across a broad and demanding agenda and monitored progress on implementation of decisions taken at COP14. I would direct delegates to review the full meeting reports for more information. Here, I will provide a quick summary. At Standing Committee 56, regional representatives reported a wide range of developments, from strengthened measures against illegal bird taking and expanded protected areas in Asia and Oceania, to habitat restoration initiatives and species conservation programs across Europe, the Americas, and Africa, reflecting continued commitment by parties across the Convention's geographic scope. The Scientific Council reported important advances of its own, including new working groups and recommendations that led to the Standing Committee's adoption of 2 key instruments, notably the International Single Species Action Plan for the sooty falcon and the West African Vulture Conservation Action Plan. A significant focus of our intersessional oversight was financial and administrative governance. The Secretariat reported both progress and constraints, including recruitment delays that resulted in a positive trust fund balance. During the year, and at the request of the Executive Secretary, I, as Chair, approved the movement of funds between calendar years to ensure the Secretariat could secure timely travel arrangements for COP preparations. The committee also reviewed the persistent challenge of arrears and stressed the importance of timely payments to ensure effective delivery. A major milestone this year was the committee's role in the first ever review mechanism case concerning the planned airport development in the Vlora Nata protected landscape in Albania. At Standing Committee 56, the committee agreed on findings, endorsed a formal letter to Albania outlining concerns, and requested targeted technical input from the Scientific Council. Standing Committee did not receive a response and no progress report was provided. At its 57th meeting yesterday, members agreed to issue a warning to the Government of Albania that the proposed mitigation and compensation measures in the existing environmental impact assessment for the Vlora International Airport are inadequate to protect CMS Appendix 1 listed species, and to advise suspending all construction and operational activities until strengthened mitigation measures are developed through a new environmental impact assessment. The Standing Committee 57 decisions will be communicated in a letter from the Chair. Beyond its formal meetings, the Standing Committee's role also involves supporting leadership continuity within the Convention. In this context, the UK participated as an observer in the recruitment process for the incoming CMS Executive Secretary. I can confirm that the recruitment was conducted properly, transparently, and in line with UN procedures, ensuring confidence in the transition that lies ahead. Chair, the Standing Committee has approached this intersessional period with diligence, unity, and a consistent focus on supporting parties and the Secretariat. I wish to thank all members, observers, and partners for their collaboration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, UK. Now I invite the Chair of the CMS Scientific Council, Ms. Narelli Montgomery, to report on the activities of the Scientific Council since COP14.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, it is my pleasure as Chair of the Scientific Council to provide a brief update on the activities that have been undertaken under the auspices of the Scientific Council since COP15 took place in 2024. Despite the fact that we have had a significantly shortened intersessional period, the Scientific Council has been very busy and progressed a large number of important work items. I only have a short amount of time to provide this update, so I will highlight a few items of particular note. I will bring to delegates' attention that the vast majority of COP15 papers were either actively produced or reviewed by the Scientific Council during this intersessional period. Delegates need only look at the breadth and number of scientific items that are being considered here this week to recognise the significant workload that the Scientific Council carries. Now, a few highlights include, you might have heard some of these previously, but it's always good to reinforce them. Now that we had the production of the interim State of the World's Migratory Species report, which provides an update to the landmark report that was launched at COP14. Doc 20.1 Rev 1 shows us that while there have been some positive developments, there is still much to do. If we are to positively influence the trajectory of many of our shared species, we need to work together collaboratively across multiple jurisdictions to meet this objective. And we are fortunate that CMS provides us with that specific opportunity. Strong progress has also been made under Resolution 14.20, which identified a suite of avian species that may benefit from the inclusion on the CMS appendices. Several of the listing proposals before us this week respond directly to that mandate. One in particular covers 26 species, subspecies and populations, a scale we haven't seen before under CMS and a reflection of the substantial conservation need for migratory birds globally. The decisions that we will make this week may potentially significantly streamline the annex to Resolution 14.20 at its next review. This is a clear example of a well-designed CMS resolution driving timely strategic action by parties. It highlights the importance of ensuring that our resolutions give parties the strategic direction and clarity needed to deliver strong conservation outcomes. There has also been considerable work undertaken to refine and strengthen CMS's Flyways agenda. Document 26.3.1 proposes a well-targeted set of amendments to Resolution 12.11 on flyways and its associated decisions, helping to sharpen our focus and reinforce the global framework for conserving migratory birds and their habitats. This work responds to emerging science and the considerable implementation experience built since the resolution was first adopted. An important gap has also been identified in relation to seabirds, one of the most threatened and least effectively protected groups of migratory species. Document 26.3.2 proposes formal recognition of marine flyways under CMS. This represents a significant conceptual advancement for the Convention, as seabirds face a unique combination of pressures, from fisheries interactions to marine pollution to climate change, and an articulated CMS framework for marine flyways will help galvanise coordinated global action. As we have heard today, climate change is already reshaping the behaviour, movement and survival of migratory species. The work captured in document 28.12 is therefore timely and essential. The leadership shown by our COP-appointed councillor, Des Thompson, particularly in re-establishing the Climate Change Working Group, convening an expert workshop in Edinburgh in early 2025, and advancing technical guidance on climate barriers and adaptation strategies, greatly enhances CMS's scientific and policy tools for addressing one of the defining challenges of our time. It also strengthens the Convention's ability to complement global climate mechanisms, ensuring migratory species are not overlooked as climate change impacts intensify. Now, it is widely recognised that we need a global transition to renewable energy. With energy demand expected to double by 2050, accelerating this transition is critical, but it must be achieved in a way that minimises impacts on migratory species and protects ecological connectivity. Document 28.11 provides clearer guidance to parties on how to integrate migratory species considerations into national energy and climate planning, and how to align this work with other multilateral environment agreements. These refinements help ensure that renewable energy developments and biodiversity conservation are pursued together, not in competition. And this is essential to achieving a rapid, responsible and sustainable energy transition. And finally, we have a focus on freshwater fish, particularly appropriate given our hosts this week. Document 25.6.1 Rev 1 highlights just how threatened freshwater fish are globally, with many species undergoing steep declines. The global assessment identifying 349 transboundary freshwater fish species that may meet CMS listing criteria, and the fact that only 24 are currently listed, should give us all pause. Annex 3 of this document provides parties with a comprehensive basis for future work, and I would like to extend sincere thanks to our COP-appointed councillor for fish of the freshwater variety, Dr. Zeb Hogan, for his commitment and leadership in bringing this substantial piece of work to COP15. Now, additional activities were progressed through a variety of working groups and task forces that operated under Scientific Council, addressing key issues such as illegal hunting and unsustainable take, wildlife disease, animal culture, aquatic wild meat, and deep-sea mining, among many others. As the highlights I've outlined, and indeed the breadth of the COP15 agenda clearly demonstrate, the Sessional Committee of the Scientific Council truly serves as the engine room of this convention. Without its efforts, much of the substantive progress before us simply would not be possible. I would like to formally acknowledge the members of the Sessional Committee, our party-appointed representatives, our COP-appointed councillors, and our regular observers, who throughout this intersessional period, each of you has stepped up and delivered an impressive amount of work within tight timeframes and under sometimes challenging circumstances. Many have attended numerous virtual meetings, often at difficult hours across multiple time zones, to ensure that our work streams continue to advance. Your dedication, professionalism, and commitment to CMS are deeply appreciated. I would also like to take a moment to recognise a valued colleague who will be stepping down at the conclusion of this meeting. Dr. Ruth Cromie has served as our COP-appointed councillor for invasive species, disease, feral animals, insects, and marine pests and weeds since COP13, a title that, as you'll see in document 16.1 Rev 2, is proposed to be refined to the more fitting and streamlined title of wildlife health. This reflects the area where the Convention most needs expert and strategic scientific guidance at this time. Ruth has brought extraordinary expertise in wildlife health to CMS and has been a driving force behind strengthening the Convention's approach in this increasingly critical area. Her leadership has sparked important discussions, shaped key work streams, and consistently elevated the profile of wildlife health across the CMS family. I would like to extend our sincere thanks to Ruth for her significant contributions over the past 6 years and wish her well in her future endeavours. Of course, her departure means that COP15 will need to appoint a new COP-appointed councillor for wildlife health, someone who will indeed have big shoes to fill. In addition, the growing breadth and complexity of issues under terrestrial fauna will require the appointment of an expert to share the responsibilities of the COP-appointed councillor for terrestrial fauna. These appointments will be essential in ensuring that CMS continues to have the specialised expertise it needs to deliver on its expanding scientific and conservation mandates. I invite you all to join with me in expressing my deep appreciation to everyone involved in the Scientific Council, including the Secretariat, for their unwavering support of our members and work streams. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Franco to say some words.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take this opportunity also to recognize the incredible work that Narelle Montgomery has been doing. One second. I want to thank Narelle Montgomery for the incredible work she has been doing for 2 terms as the chair of our Scientific Council and its sessional committee. I mean, it's not a light commitment, and it's been a very full agenda, and you've heard just a snapshot of some of the work that has been going on just in this last period. As Executive Secretary, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with Narelle and brainstorm and think about how we can best bring all this work forward. She needs to step down just because under our rules after 2 terms, but your leadership and your sense of humor will also be greatly missed. And I hope you will stay engaged, of course, in the work after that. But I would like to just acknowledge and thank you for the incredible leadership you've given in this role.
We now turn your attention to document 9, report of depositary and host country. I invite the representative of the government of Germany to provide their report.
Thank you, Chair. And we would also like to thank the host country, Brazil, for organizing this COP and for welcoming us here. Muito obrigado por nos receberem aqui em Campo Grande e no Mato Grosso do Sul. The Depositaries Report provides an overview of the current situation regarding the parties to the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, and here are the key points. There are 133 parties, including 132 member states and the European Union. Since the last report of the depository in January 2025, there have been no new accessions or withdrawals. The Czech Republic has withdrawn its reservations to the amendments of the annexes to the Convention adopted at the 14th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. The depository is not aware of any reservations that have been invalidated by Resolution 13.8 of the 13th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. The Federal Republic of Germany supports the efforts of the CMS Secretariat to recruit new members and is also working to recruit new members itself by contacting German missions abroad and requesting their support. Overall, the report shows that the Convention continues to play an important role in the conservation of migratory species of wild animals, and that the parties and the depository are making efforts to recruit new members and strengthen cooperation. Further details are to be found in the full report online. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Germany. Now I invite the meeting to take up agenda item 10, statements. I would be grateful, distinguished delegates, if you could now turn your attention to items 10.1, 10.2, statements by parties and no parties. In the interest of time, I invite any party and non-party that wishes to make a statement to provide written statements to the Secretariat by sending them to the email address cop15@cms.int and to incorporate them into the proceedings. However, if a part or non-part wish to make a short statement now, I invite them to do so, preferably on behalf of their region or a group of countries. To ensure that meeting will have sufficient time to address all agenda items, I propose that the meetings limit the time on statements to a maximum of 3 minutes under this agenda item. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. In the last COP15, a resolution was adopted wherein India was identified to play a lead role in CAF, Central Asian Flyway, and our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, I quote, India to establish an institutional mechanism for undertaking research studies, assessments, capacity development, and conservation initiatives by creating a common platform, unquote. Later, in the COP14, Samarkand, Uzbekistan, the initiative for Central Asian Flyway was adopted. Herein, I'll update the progress we have made post COP14. Here, an establishment of an initiative for Central Asian Flyway Coordinating Unit in Delhi National Capital Region under CMS Secretariat will be established, and creation of a national project management team to support national implementation will also be thought of. And the structure broadly will be CMS coordinating team, head of office of P4 rank, associate officer of P2, and an administrative assistant of G5. And the executive director will be a joint secretary level, the focal point being the Inspector General of Forests in the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, and supported by officers and experts. And the key functions would be implement program of work for CAF conservation, facilitate coordination among 30 range countries of Central Asian Flyway, organize national, international workshops and capacity building programs, promote research, monitoring and conservation planning, mobilize resources including corporate social responsibility funding. A steering group led by India will guide implementation. And the financial implications in this regard is also getting worked out with the Department of Expenditure and Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. And this proposal is clearly justified in the way it strengthens India's global leadership in biodiversity conservation, enables coordinated conservation among CAF countries, enhances scientific research, capacity building and policy support, facilitates international collaboration and resource mobilization. To conclude, the establishment of Initiative for Central Asian Flyway Coordinating Unit in India will institutionalize regional cooperation for migratory bird conservation, align with international commitments, and reinforce India's leadership role in global environmental governance. Thank you, Chair. India wishes to express its appreciation to the government of Brazil for hosting the 15th meeting of Conference of Parties to CMS in Campo Grande, and also to thank the government and people of Brazil for their generous hospitality. India also wishes to place on record deep appreciation to the CMS Secretariat for all their efforts for hosting this important event. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, India. European Union, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, Your Excellencies, Ms. Executive Secretary, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Cyprus, on behalf of the EU and its member states, would like to express our sincere gratitude to the government of Brazil for hosting this important meeting in the city of Campo Grande, the gateway to the Pantanal. The EU and its member states are highly appreciative of the huge amount of work undertaken by the Secretariat, the Standing Committee, and the Scientific Council in preparation for this COP. We recognize the invaluable role that migratory species play in maintaining the health and balance of ecosystems across the globe. In that context, we continue to value the Samarkand Strategic Plan for Migratory Species, not only as a framework that sets the course for the next decade of action, but also as a key tool in implementation of the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. We further welcome the opportunities and possibilities provided by the entry into force of the new agreement on biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, which will play an important role for the protection of migratory species. We thank the proponents for their science-based proposals to amend the appendices, helping to ensure the long-term survival of these animals and the ecosystem they inhabit. We also appreciate the continuous work of the CMS family in bringing forward and implementing concerted actions, initiatives, and species-specific action plans addressing the complex challenges faced by migratory species on a global scale. In this light, we are pleased to contribute to the suite of CMS instruments by proposing the Single Species Action Plan for the taupe shark in the Northeast Atlantic and Mediterranean Sea, and the Multi-Species Action Plan to conserve African, Eurasian, and Australian bastards, and we hope that these will be supported by others. These endeavors should be sustained, enhanced, and supplemented with additional actions necessary to improve the conservation of migratory species and their habitats, in particular through strengthened collaboration at regional or global level with sector organizations and partners, other biodiversity-related conventions, UN entities, NGOs, and other stakeholders. Finally, we look forward to working closely with all of you and are fully committed to make this meeting a success, showing that multilateralism can work to protect migratory species. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Now, Panama, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair, distinguished delegations, Secretariat, dear colleagues. It is an honor to speak on behalf of the countries from Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. In the first place, we would like to congratulate and deeply thank Brazil for their leadership in the organization of this Conference of the Parties, as well as their sustained commitment to the conservation of migratory species, and we particularly value their role as a connector of key initiatives throughout our region. The parties in our region reaffirm their firm commitment to the implementation of the Convention and would like to highlight the regional leadership reflected in the drive and development of numerous resolutions, joint efforts, and proposals for amendment to the appendices. Our region has shown specific progress and tangible results. We'd like to highlight some of the major areas of work linked to terrestrial mammals. We would like to highlight the progress in the conservation of the jaguar through coordinated efforts across countries to ensure its protection and the connectivity of habitats. In the marine area, we have strengthened actions for marine mammals, including the monitoring, the mitigation of bycatch and regional scientific cooperation. And when it comes to sharks and rails, we have made significant progress across the region through national and regional plans, which has strengthened the scientific basis for their management and conservation. When it comes to freshwater species, with action plans that aim to strengthen the cross-border management and connectivity of these species that are vital to ecosystem balance and for local communities in our region. When it comes to migratory birds, we would like to highlight the implementation of action plans and the strengthening of migratory routes, as well as cooperation through regional MOUs. These achievements reflect a growing coordination amongst the countries of the region, as well as synergies with other multilateral environmental agreements. But ambition in itself is not enough. Connectivity comes with a cost. Translating this level of ambition to action requires necessary and predictable implementation resources. Many developing countries, including those in our region, despite hosting globally important ecosystems, face limitations with technical capacity as well as financial and human resources. In order to close this gap, the financial mechanisms, technical cooperation, and the capacity building must be up to the level of this political ambition. Otherwise, the connectivity will continue to be an unfulfilled promise with direct consequences for development and food security. So our region has made a clear appeal for the building of multilateral financing, including innovative mechanisms, and where we really address the full implementation of the decisions of the Convention, build the capacity on a national and regional level, have greater clarity on the gaps and the financing needs, as well as those of technical cooperation, and to ensure that there is continuity in the monitoring and research programs. So we would like to highlight the importance of progressing with our new regional priorities, including development and implementation of action plans for key species, so that we can promote solutions that are based on science and coordination, as well as an ecosystem approach. And so we would like to reaffirm our willingness to work together with all parties, the Secretariat and international partners, to ensure sustainability. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Mr. Chair, Your Excellencies, heads of international organizations, bodies, ambassadors, diplomats, distinguished delegates, e prezados integrantes da equipe brasileira.
Dear organizers for the wonderful event we had.
We are grateful as well to the CMS Secretariat for their excellent work in preparing all the documents and organizing the meetings. Unfortunately, since 2014, the Russian Federation has been waging an aggressive war against Ukraine. During all 12 years, Russian Federation continues to destroy natural habitats of cetaceans on the coasts of Black and Azov Sea, and violate migration routes for birds, bats, fish in the lower reaches of Dnieper and the Danube rivers, as well as in parts of Desna and Seversky Donetsk River. Until now, the Russian Federation has not been a party to the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, but it is a party of Convention on Biological Diversity and other multilateral environmental agreements, and openly violates its obligation by destroying nature on the territory of Ukraine. Recognition of this damage leads to the withdrawal of Russian Federation from conventions, as was the case with the Convention of Wetlands. Dear delegates, despite the war, Ukraine remains committed to implementing the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals and other international treaty related to biodiversity. We are convinced that multilateral environmental protections mechanism, in particular UN agencies and conventional bodies, can serve as effective and practical tools to assist member states in overcoming challenges. Also, we should consider expanding mandate and bringing it into line with current reality, with in mind at Ukraine initiatives at 6th session of UN Environmental Assembly in 2024 adopted a resolution entitled Environmental Assistance and Rehabilitation in Areas Affected by Armed Conflict. Ukraine confirms its readiness to continue close cooperation with all member states interested in promoting this issue. Our delegation wishes the participants of the meeting success and discussing in adopting important resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ukraine. Now, New Zealand, please. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and tēnā koutou katoa. Good afternoon, dignitaries and colleagues. New Zealand is speaking on behalf of the Oceania region. Firstly, we'd like to express our sincere thanks to the Government of Brazil for hosting us in this splendid venue in the beautiful city of Campo Grande. Thank you also to the Secretariat for all your work intercessionally and in supporting this COP. Since the last COP, Oceania parties have been actively progressing actions on our own and collaboratively to conserve migratory species in our region. As a region of island nations where the ocean plays a critical role in our livelihoods and cultural identities, our focus is on species of seabirds, shorebirds, marine mammals, fish and turtles that migrate across our oceans. I'd like to share a small number of highlights with you from the last intercessional period. Firstly, Oceania parties have demonstrated strong leadership on seabird conservation. This reflects the importance of seabirds to our ecosystems as well as their cultural importance. For COP15, Oceania parties, including New Zealand, Australia, Cook Islands and Fiji, have joined with other countries to lead the development of 2 seabird listing proposals which will help to foster international cooperation and ensure the survival of some of the world's most endangered seabirds like the Fiji petrel. Secondly, Oceania parties have been actively involved in several CMS working groups and task forces. Thirdly, our parties have been active, working individually, from a regional seabird monitoring workshop held in the Cook Islands to the launch of Samoa's Marine Spatial Plan, which explicitly integrates migratory corridors for marine mammals, to the financial support from Australia on key areas of the CMS work plan, such as the report on the potential impacts of deep-sea mining on migratory species. Fourthly, the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Programme continues to play a central role in advancing migratory species conservation across the South Pacific. This includes running workshops, CMS-related capacity building with Pacific Island countries, and strengthening synergies between CMS and CITES. Priority issues for Oceania parties at this COP include the seabird listing proposals, agenda items that relate to marine migratory species, the draft resolution on seabirds and marine flyways, and the draft resolution on multiple systems of knowledge, including traditional and Indigenous knowledge. Oceania parties are looking forward to working with you all this week. Thank you.
Thank you, New Zealand. Now, Zimbabwe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Zimbabwe makes this statement on behalf of the Africa region. Good afternoon to you all. Africa is delighted to be here in the Pantanal, and we congratulate the government of Brazil for successfully organizing this COP15, including a historic high-level segment that was held yesterday, which was graced by several heads of states, ministers, and other dignitaries yesterday. We feel the warm welcome to your beautiful country. This COP15 is happening at a time when we all need to join hands together to tackle the urgent conservation challenges faced by the thousands of migratory species of wild animals that have to cross international borders as part of their survival rhythm. We still need more concerted action, partnerships, technology, and resources to achieve our collective agenda. Connecting nature to sustain life is a call to action on its own. What a beautiful theme for COP15. Distinguished delegates, African Union Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan makes it very clear that Africa's prosperity is intimately connected to its rich biodiversity and unique wildlife endowment that need cooperation, collaboration across frontiers. We cannot achieve the desired goals and targets in isolation. We need each other to learn from the species that we seek to conserve and protect. They break barriers, they cross borders, they adapt, they have shown resilience, they exhibited teamwork for survival of their kind, demonstration of unquestionable determination to persist even as the climate and other odds are against the desirable. That is our understanding of this convention, and we firmly believe in the unique role CMS plays in the global architecture for nature conservation, synchronized with the global biodiversity framework, 4 goals and 23 targets. Of course, we are conscious of the need to advance concerted action from formalizing partnerships to address the most pressing threats for migratory species and strengthen various measures to prevent illegal killing and trade. As we gathered here, Africa looks forward to reviewing progress on the Samarkand strategic plan, adopting decisions and resolutions that scale up species-specific conservation action at global level. And this process requires government, scientists, indigenous people and local communities, the youth, the women, everyone that we see all here, and that makes us happy. We are grateful to the selfless leadership of Emmy, and we look forward to working very closely with Andrew, and we congratulate Elizabeth and the rest of the UNED team for handling this leadership transition. We are here in solidarity for the species that have lived with our ancestors since time immemorial. I thank you very much. But let's not forget the successes that we recorded on our journey from Samarkand to the Pantanal. Thank you.
Thank you, Zimbabwe. I will finish the statements. Thank you very much to observe the time. No, sorry. Oh, sorry. Ask Obans. Would you like to Brazil would like to make this statement? Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I will take the opportunity to deliver this statement in Portuguese. Senhor Presidente, estar em Campo Grande, na porta de entrada do Pantanal, um bioma essencial para tantas espécies migratórias, há de nos inspirar na tarefa dessa semana. Fortalecer a Convenção e avançar em sua implementação. O Brasil, como um dos países mais biodiversos do mundo, abriga algumas das espécies migratórias mais emblemáticas do planeta. A onça-pintada, cuja sobrevivência depende da conectividade entre biomas. Os bagres amazônicos, que percorrem milhares de quilômetros ao longo de sistemas fluviais. Os tubarões, essenciais para o equilíbrio dos ecossistemas marinhos. E, claro, inúmeras aves migratórias que conectam continentes e ecossistemas. O Brasil chega a essa COP com contribuições concretas. Apresentamos propostas de inclusão de espécies de tubarões e aves nos apêndices da Convenção, incluindo o cabroquinho do Pantanal no apêndice 2, espécie que simboliza esse bioma e cuja conservação contribuirá para a proteção de seus habitats associados. Também apoiamos o Plano de Ação Multiespécies para os bagres migratórios amazônicos, elaborado em parceria com países da Bacia Amazônica, inclusive países que ainda não são partes dessa convenção. Trata-se de uma iniciativa que articula conservação, ação regional em torno de espécies fundamentais para a biodiversidade e para a segurança alimentar de nossas populações. Senhor Presidente, a plena implementação da CMS
malheureusement, il semblerait qu'il y ait un problème technique avec l'interprétation. Les interprètes sont désolés. L'interprétation en français reprendra dès que le problème technique sera résolu.
Together amplify 1,000 hectares, the protected area of this country, and reinforce the connectivity between them. Mr. President, this convention, adopted in 1979, precedes more than 1 decade the Conference of Rio of 92. It was the pioneer to establish one platform to transit these national frontiers. But we also need to evaluate. Mr. President, it's not about justifying a nation, but to promote a collective action and cooperate, because this is not disposable efforts to collaborate between each other. CMS must be responsible to talk about all species migratories. Frequently, we have different kind of efforts to conservation, but we still need the private society efforts and contributions, non-parties, so we can make this happen. Capacitation and transfer of technology can contribute decisively with this our efforts. Only in 2015, we just have acknowledgement about this. But today, we affirm our compromise. Because have a most balanced deal, you must have conserve all immigration species. Thank you very much.
Eu ficaria muito grato de agradecer.
10.3 Statements by the CMS Agreements. I invite the representatives of the legally binding agreements concluded under the Convention to make a very brief statement. Escobans, please. Seats, Aerobats. Aerobats, please. You have the floor. Escoban is ready. Escoban, yes. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, ASCOPANS is the agreement on the conservation of small cetaceans of the Baltic, Northeast Atlantic, Irish and North Seas. It is a United Nations treaty administered by UNEP and its secretariat is part of the CMS Secretariat. Information document 10.3.1 contains a report on progress made on activities undertaken within the framework of ASCOBAN since COP15. I won't go into much detail now, but would like to highlight a couple of things. 10th meeting of the parties in Denmark in September 2024 adopted resolutions, for example, on the conservation of beaked whales, maritime spatial planning, mitigating impacts of recreational activities on small cetaceans, and on shallow water mining. In addition, resolutions addressing ocean energy and the adverse effects of underwater noise from offshore renewable energy construction were revised to better help protect critical life stages and habitats of small cetaceans. Since COP14, ASCOBAN has organized or co-hosted 14 meetings and workshops and has facilitated 19 working groups on topics such as bycatch and the Baltic Harbour porpoise. How does the small ASCOBAN Secretariat, equivalent of 1.5 staff members, do this? With support from dedicated parties and collaboration with other IGOs and with NGOs. Without this support, much less progress would have been possible on many tasks in the ASCOBAN's work plan assigned to the Advisory Committee and the Secretariat. On behalf of the Secretariat, I encourage more range states to join ASCOBAN's, because together we can ensure that small cetaceans, sentinels of ocean health, continue to thrive in our shared seas. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Iowa, you have the floor, please. Iowa.
Mr. President, as this is the first time the UNEP AWA Secretariat is taking the floor, allow me to warmly congratulate you on your election as President of CMS COP15. Distinguished delegates, I'm pleased to present key highlights of the progress under the Agreement on the Conservation of African Eurasian Migratory Waterbirds since CMS COP14 in Samarkand. I would like to draw your attention to the AWA Secretariat's written report presented in Information Document 10.3.4. AWA now counts 85 parties, representing 71% of all its range states. While no new accessions materialized in the last 2 years, sustained effort has been maintained to increase the number of AWA parties. Despite resource constraints and lately operating below full staffing capacity, the Secretariat has continued to deliver on its core mandates. Key governance processes have been maintained, including regular meetings of the standing and technical committees, as well as the successful convening of the 9th session of the meeting of the parties in Bonn, Germany in November 2025. MOP9 adopted 11 resolutions, setting a clear direction for the implementation of the current strategic plan in its final triennial period, while initiating work towards the development of the new strategic plan for 2029-2037. Important progress has also been made in strengthening the technical and policy framework of the agreement, including amendments to some of its annexes and the compilation of the 9th edition of the AWA Conservation Status Report, which provides a strengthened policy-relevant focus on pressures and responses. At the same time, AWA marked its 30th anniversary in 2025. This milestone was not only a celebration of 3 decades of international cooperation, but also a moment of reflection. In particular, we recall the commemoration of the slender-billed curlew, the first and hopefully the last AWA-listed species that was declared extinct just a few months ago in October 2025. This loss is especially poignant as the slender-billed curlew is also listed on CMS Appendix 1. Its extinction serves as a stark reminder of the urgency of our work and the consequences of belated action. It underscores the need to strengthen implementation, enhance cooperation, and act promptly to prevent further loss of migratory species. Efforts under AWA focused on target species have continued since COP14, with renewed momentum in the implementation of international species action and management plans, supported by targeted funding and strengthened coordination. Strengthened cooperation with CMS and other MEAs at flyway initiatives, particularly the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, further contributed to advancing flyway conservation. Mr. President, while progress has been made in the last 2 years, the extinction of the slender-billed curlew reminds us that the efforts must be scaled up. Expanding membership, securing sustained resources, and accelerating implementation on the ground are critical for restoring and keeping migratory water birds in a favorable conservation status. Thank you.
Thank you, Iowa. Now, Eurobats, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your Excellencies, delegates, dear colleagues, I'm pleased to address you on behalf of the Eurobats Agreement on the conservation of populations of European bats. Eurobats is the only international agreement dedicated to bats, remarkable flying mammals that provide vital ecosystem services, including natural pest control, plant pollination, and seed dispersal. I will briefly present our progress since CMS COP15 in protecting 55 species occurring in the Eurobats area and listed under the agreement. We are encouraged to report continued growth within the agreement. In July 24, Spain acceded to Eurobats, becoming our 39th party. Still, further progress remains to be achieved, as 24 range states have yet to join the agreement, including countries in North Africa and Southwest Asia. Our governing bodies have remained active and efficient. The Standing Committee met 3 times in this period, successfully implementing key budget priorities, including strengthening administrative capacity within the Secretariat and supporting in-person scientific exchange. Eurobats Advisory Committee has demonstrated strong engagement with broad participation of bat experts. A total of 19 intersessional working groups are advancing critical work on issues such as bat habitat conservation, climate change, and the impact of heat waves on roosting bats, renewable energy impact, light pollution, and online trade in bats. These efforts are laying the foundation for substantive outcomes at our 10th meeting of parties in November this year, kindly hosted by the government of Malta. Eurobats has also delivered concrete outputs. 2 new guidance documents were published in 2024 addressing bats in transport infrastructure and building insulation. These tools directly support parties in integrating bat conservation in development planning. Currently, we are preparing further guidance on impacts of offshore wind turbines and on bat rescue and rehabilitation. We fund projects through Eurobats Projects Initiative, demonstrating the value of small-scale, high-impact interventions. Communication and outreach remain our priority, with the launch of the new Eurobats website and the International Bat Night held on the last weekend of August each year. Eurobats continues to contribute to cross-cutting initiative within the CMS family, particularly in relation to energy infrastructure and species listing. In conclusion, we continue to deliver strong scientific, technical, and policy contributions, despite us being a small secretariat with limited resources. We stand ready to contribute our experience to emerging global initiatives on bat conservation and look forward to strengthening partnership in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Akobans, you have the floor.
Merci.
Thank you, Chair. First and foremost, allow me to thank the Secretariat of the CMS and the Brazilian authorities for the remarkable welcome we've received here in Campo Grande. It's an honor for me to take the floor today on behalf of Akobans within this great extended family of the CMS This has been a very important year for ACOBAMS. Our 9th meeting of the parties, which was held in November 2025, enabled us to adopt a programme of work for 2026 to 2028, which enables us to strengthen scientific monitoring on a large scale, structure our responses in the face of anthropic pressures, and consolidate our conservation efforts in the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. This programme features the ACOBAM Survey Initiative too, which is fully integrated into the long-term monitoring programme. And alongside the Scientific Committee, the Steering Committee, our work will enable us to smoothly begin our campaigns in the end of May 2026. As has been repeated on several occasions, the strength of the CMS family lies first and foremost in cooperation. And here I wish to highlight, for example, our work on bycatch with the joint working group, ACOBAMS and ASCOBANS, which enables us to cooperate among regions and to identify common priorities. As for underwater noise, our joint working group, CMS, ACOBAMS and ASCOBANS, as well as a second technical workshop in October 2024 with several national navies, have enabled us to strengthen harmonization among our approaches. As for vessel strikes, the Shipprint project, the Pelagius Consortium, and other efforts have enabled us to better understand risk zones, and we've also been working on the NetCOBAMS platform. As for strandings, the ACOBAMS Emergency Task Force has been a driving force within a large effort at CMS level. We have been working for 30 years now based on the conviction that together we can have a greater impact as we share the same vision and a shared responsibility. And this is an opportunity to join efforts to address threats to migratory species in a rapidly evolving world. And please rest assured that ACOBAMS will continue to be mobilized to contribute to this collective effort. Thank you.
You have the floor.
Good afternoon. The Agreement on the Conservation of Albatrosses and Petrels, ACAP, expresses its sincere appreciation for this opportunity to participate in COP15 and extends a warm greeting to all dignitaries, distinguished delegates, the CMS Secretariat and the people of Campo Grande in Brazil. The ACAP is a daughter or a child agreement of the CMS, and many, if not all, the 13 ACAP parties are represented here at this meeting. Several other CMS participants who are not yet ACAP parties also take an interest in ACAP's activities and advice. In an information paper, Inf 10.3.2, we provide an update on ACAP meetings and activities since the last COP. All pro-solariforms are of interest to the ACAP. And so we welcome consideration by the COP of proposals to include the flesh-footed shearwater on Appendix 2, to include 22 gadfly petrel species, subspecies, and geographic populations on Appendix 1 and 2, to continue the concerted action for the Antipodean albatross, and to consider adoption of a concerted action for the flesh-footed shearwater. ACAP parties and other interested countries and groups have dedicated their collective efforts to developing solutions to the conservation threats facing albatrosses and petrels for over 2 decades now. We continue to urge more countries to join and/or engage more deeply with ACAP, especially those that are range states for ACAP listed albatrosses and petrels. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the agreements who are part of CMS family and are working with the same objective to conserve migratory species. I would be grateful, distinguished delegates, if you could now turn your attention to item 10.4, statements by intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations. In the interest of time, I invite intergovernmental and non-governmental and other observers organizations to provide written statements to the Secretariat so that they can be incorporated into the proceedings. However, if any organizations wish to make a very short statement now, I invite them to do so, preferable on behalf of a group of organizations. In the interest of time, please limit the time on statements to a maximum of 2 minutes. Sorry, WWF, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your election. Chair, distinguished delegates, this intervention is being made on behalf of the Animal Welfare Institute, the Benin Environment and Education Society, BirdLife, Born Free, Charles Darwin Foundation, Deep Sea Conservation Coalition, Fondation Cetus, Humane World for Animals, IFAW, the Irish Basking Shark Group, and the Marine Research and Conservation Coalition, the Manta Trust, Ocean Care, the Pan-African Sanctuary Alliance, Panthera, Pro-Wildlife, Save Our Seas, Traffic, the Wildlife Conservation Society, and WWF. At the outset, we wish to thank the governments and people of Brazil, Mato Grosso, and Campo Grande in particular for extending their unique bem-vindo to the participants who have traveled from all parts of the world to attend this meeting. Brazil is, of course, one of the most important range states for jaguar, which features on the agenda. Here in Campo Grande, we are on the edge of one of the species' strongholds. We also thank the Convention Secretariat for all the hard work in preparing for this meeting and for the many excellent documents. We in the CMS community are particularly fortunate in having a Secretariat that is knowledgeable, efficient, hard-working, and above all, extremely collaborative with civil society organizations. The Secretariat itself has been fortunate in having had the leadership of Amy Frankel. She has been a tireless advocate for species conservation, including migratory species, in CBD and elsewhere, and has been an excellent ambassador for the convention. Amy, we will miss you, and we wish you all the best in your well-earned retirement, although somehow we don't anticipate that you will be any less active in the conservation sphere. We also congratulate and welcome Andrew Rain as Executive Secretary Designate. Andrew, you have a hard act to follow, but we have heard many great things about you, and we look forward to your tenure. No pressure. It's often said at COP meetings that they come at a critical time, but today it is more true than ever. The update on the state of the world's migratory species tells us that despite many tactical successes, overall we are not winning the fight. It identifies the lack of protected and conserved areas as a key factor, but CMS has argued correctly that in addition we must ensure connectivity between such areas, and it has placed itself in the vanguard of the movement for greater ecological connectivity. We also welcome the initiative on illegal and unsustainable take in listed species and the continuation of the work stream on aquatic wild meat. We believe it is important to confront the reality of these issues and to take steps accordingly. There are so many critical issues to be discussed at this meeting that it is impossible to list all of them. The COP will take decisions on flyways, deep seabed mining, connectivity in freshwater and open biomes, including seamounts and important marine turtle areas, pollution and many other issues. We support all of the proposals to add new species, each one beautiful and important in its own way, to Appendices 1 and 2, and thank the parties who brought these forward. Our shared commitment to conservation and the capacity of CMS to achieve consensus on difficult issues will hopefully ensure that this meeting will be a step forward in the fight for the conservation of migratory species and their habitats and of biodiversity more generally. With fewer than 4 years until 2030, a key delivery date of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, we urge parties and the entire CMS community to take the necessary steps in implementation and to scale up their use of this treaty as a practical guide to reaching these goals. The conservation status of
please, could you observe the time, please?
Almost finished, I beg your pardon. The conservation status of migratory species is the ultimate indicator of the effectiveness of international cooperation on biodiversity conservation, just as carbon is on climate change. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, WWF. As I said before, in the interest of time, please limit the time of statements to a maximum 2 minutes. Now, CITES, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, it is a pleasure to address CMS COP15. Congratulations and thanks to Brazil for the great preparations and for the Secretariat for the documents of the meeting. Connecting nature to sustain life and bridging nature and people, the slogans for the respective meetings of the COPs of CMS and CITES reflect the shared commitment to conserving biodiversity while recognizing the vital connections between nature, people, and sustainable development. CMS and CITES share a long-standing partnership built on the understanding that both conserving migratory species and ensuring that international trade in these species is legal and sustainable require coordinated international action and cooperation. Many of the themes on the agenda of this meeting highlight the importance of such cooperation. Through the CMS-CITES Joint Work Program, we collaborate in areas such as harmonizing species information, strengthening scientific exchange, supporting capacity building, and coordinating conservation action for shared species. An example of the latter is the collaboration on jaguars, an iconic species of the Americas, where the Secretariat support range states in implementing actions to conserve this species. Another is the CMS and CITES collaboration on initiatives addressing African big cats, such as the cheetah, lion, and leopard, including through the African Carnivores Initiative. Similarly, the two conventions work together on species such as marine turtles, sharks and rays, saiga, and sacar falcon, where CMS initiatives on migratory connectivity and habitat conservation complement the regulatory framework of CITES governing international trade. By enhancing the effect of our respective strengths, CMS on migratory species conservation and CITES on ensuring that wildlife trade is legal and sustainable, we can provide stronger and more effective support to our parties. I look forward to continuing to strengthen this partnership as we work together to conserve migratory species across the world's ecosystems. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now, IUCN, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies and distinguished delegates, colleagues and partners, it's a great honor for IUCN to address the opening CMS COP15 here in Campo Grande. We would like to thank the great and constant leadership of Brazil and their generosity in hosting this COP, just months after having many of us in Belém. This meeting represents a critical opportunity to reaffirm the vital importance of conserving species and the essential roles they play in sustaining ecosystem economies and life on Earth. Migratory species connect countries, continents, and oceans. Their survival depends on our ability to act collectively. IUCN therefore calls on parties to take urgent and coordinated action, beginning with the full implementation of the Samarkand Plan and its integration into national biodiversity strategies and action plans, stronger alignment between CMS implementation and the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework is essential to accelerate species recovery, maintain, enhance, and restore ecological connectivity and build resilient ecosystems. It is particularly meaningful that this meeting takes place near the Pantanal, one of the world's largest and most important wetlands, which supports extraordinary biodiversity and provides critical habitat for migratory birds, fish, and other species. IUCN also urges strengthened action on the main drivers of decline. Fisheries impacts, especially bycatch, remain one of the most important threats to sharks, rays, marine mammals, seabirds, and migratory fish. Parties should improve monitoring and species-level reporting, implement targeted mitigation measures, and strengthen collaboration with regional fisheries management bodies. At the same time, ecological connectivity must be embedded across rivers, landscapes, seascapes, and flyways through planning, avoiding, and mitigating impacts of infrastructure, development, and transboundary cooperation. We further encourage parties to strengthen efforts to address human-wildlife conflict and promote coexistence while supporting nature-positive planning, including KBAs, important marine mammal areas, and important shark and ray areas. Provide powerful tools to guide spatial planning, protect breeding and feeding areas, and safeguard migratory corridors. An ambitious agenda stands before parties in the days ahead. IUCN stands ready to support your decision-making with scientific expertise to secure a future for migratory species and the ecosystems on which we all depend. We wish you a successful COP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, IUCN. Now, Clay, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, it is an honor to address you today on behalf of ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainable Development, a global network of 2,000 plus cities and subnational governments from 125 countries globally. We recognize that many migratory species journey dissect with cities, which are not only home to more than half of the world's population, but many cities are also critical in promoting ecological connectivity, as they are home to breeding sites, resting and feeding habits for countless migratory species. Because of this, local governments are uniquely positioned to contribute to the objectives of the Convention and can support parties in meeting their obligations under this Convention. There are many great examples of how cities, from Tata in Hungary to Waseda in Iran or Abu Dhabi in the UAE, promote and support the protection of migratory species through awareness raising, regulating and reducing light pollution, restoring ecosystems or creating ecological corridors, and considering migratory species in land use planning decisions and frameworks. And for this reason, we encourage cities and subnational governments around the world to take actions in line with national priorities and targets that support their parties in protecting migratory species. Migratory species remind us that nature knows no borders. Let us work together as parties, cities, regions, and other partners to ensure that the journey of migratory species continues for generations to come. We would like to thank the Secretariat and Amy Frankel for her dedication and great work, and look forward to working with the new Executive Secretary through the Global Partnership on Ecological Connectivity. And we wish you a successful COP. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Born Free, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The CMS vision, which I think we all share in this room, calls for migratory species and their habitats to be conserved and restored while maintaining ecological integrity. Today I'm speaking on behalf of the Born Free Foundation, an international wildlife charity and CMS partner NGO, promoting compassionate conservation. Our field programs directly support the CMS objectives. We add our thanks to the government and people of Brazil for the warm welcome we have received in Campo Grande, and the hard work of the Secretariat and local teams who have made COP15 happen. Born Free makes a meaningful and practical contribution to the vision, mission, and strategic goals of the Convention on Migratory Species by focusing on habitat protection, community engagement, wildlife law enforcement, support, and promoting coexistence between people and wildlife. Born Free helps advance international efforts to conserve migratory species and maintain ecological connectivity. Through initiatives to secure community buy-in and address the drivers of habitat decline in key range states, particularly across Africa, the organization helps these parties maintain viable ecosystems upon which migratory species depend. These efforts help to enable animals to move safely across national and ecological boundaries, despite increasing pressures from infrastructural development, agriculture, and expanding human settlement. Born Free's approach aligns closely with CMS Goal 1 by addressing underlying drivers of species decline, including those just listed: poverty, human-wildlife conflict, and unsustainable use. Through community-based conservation, livelihood and support, and education programs, we promote local stewardship and reduce pressures that can lead to retaliatory killing or habitat encroachment. Finally, Born Free's investment in partnerships, education, and awareness supports CMS Goal 5 by strengthening capacity, knowledge sharing, and participatory conservation programs. We look forward to working with you during COP15 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Born Free. Now, the IWC, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The International Whaling Commission is pleased to participate in the 15th meeting. Can you hear?
More close the microphone,
Sorry.
please.
The International Whaling Commission is pleased to participate in the 15th meeting of the Conference of Parties to the Convention of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. We would like to thank the government of Brazil for hosting this meeting under the theme Connecting Nature to Sustain Life, which gives needed attention to the role of ecological connectivity to achieve the international community's biodiversity goals. This theme is very relevant to the IWC, given our focus on the conservation and management of whales and other cetaceans, many of which are migratory. Thus, we work in close cooperation with CMS. Many of the agenda items of this COP15 are relevant to the IWC, and we will be contributing to these during the week. The IWC commemorates its 80th anniversary this year. As one of the first marine stewardship organizations, the Commission has witnessed profound changes to the nature, number, and complexity of threats to cetaceans. Over 8 decades, the IWC has evolved to address these threats on the basis of strong science provided by its scientific committee. The IWC has risen to these challenges through an increasing number of globally recognized research, capacity building, and outreach programs. This ever-broadening range of threats calls for collaboration with an increasing number of partner organizations. The IWC is particularly pleased to be collaborating with CMS and its daughter agreements, ASCOBANS and ACOBANS, on the front lines of these efforts. The IWC also has a long-running assessment program that results in comprehensive data sets, which can help not only identify important marine and inland water areas, but also monitor progress in the achievements of the Samarkand Strategic Plan, as well as other key processes such as the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and the BBNJ. The IWC looks forward to further strengthening collaboration with CMS and welcomes the proposals presented in this regard to COP15 to foster synergies, avoid duplication, and look for efficiencies in our common objectives. We look forward to contributing to this COP15 and to continued dialogue and collaboration on issues of mutual interest, noting that the IWC will host a meeting of its scientific committee in April in Slovenia, and the 70th meeting of the Commission on the 27th of September to the 2nd of October this year in Hobart, Australia, providing further opportunities to progress our common agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, IWC. Now, Aguapan, Águas Amazônicas. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Aguas Amazônicas, Amazon Waters Alliance. On this opening day of CMS COP15, the Amazon Waters Alliance warmly welcomes delegates, partners, indigenous peoples and local communities, scientists, civil society organizations, and observers gathered here in Campo Grande for this important meeting on migratory species. We would like to recognize and thank the CMS Secretariat for its continuous leadership, commitment, and hard work in convening this process and advancing international cooperation for the conservation of migratory species. We also extend our sincere appreciation to the government of Brazil for hosting COP15 and for bringing the global community together. For the Amazon, this COP comes at a critical time. The conservation of migratory species depends not only on protecting individual species, but also on safeguarding the ecological connectivity that allows them to move, feed, reproduce, and sustain the health of entire ecosystems. In this context, migratory catfish are emblematic of the urgent need for transboundary cooperation, science-based action, and stronger commitments to protect connected rivers and the communities whose food security, livelihoods, and cultures depend on them. The Amazon Waters Alliance welcomes this opportunity to contribute to the dialogue and encourages parties to continue advancing regional cooperation for Amazonian aquatic ecosystems, including through the support of the Regional Action Plan for Migratory Catfish. We remain committed to working alongside government partners and local actors to help ensure that the outcomes of this COP translate into meaningful action for the Amazon basin. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have finished our statements. Thank you for all that give us these important messages. And we shall now move to Agenda 11, Item 11, Report of the United Nations Environment Program. I invite the representative from UNEP to present its report on UNEP activities.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates and colleagues, it's an honor to present the report of the United Nations Environment Programme, COP15 Document 11, detailing UNEP's support to the Convention on Migratory Species. UNEP remains steadfast as the institutional home of CMS. Our medium-term strategy for 2026-2029 is designed to tackle the triple planetary crisis with renewed urgency. We are committed to ensuring that the conservation of migratory species and connectivity are not treated in isolation, but act as driving forces in the implementation of MBSAPs and the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, the Samarkand Strategic Plan, as well as other national and regional planning and implementation approaches. On the programmatic front, UNEP has contributed to translating global mandates into tangible transboundary and national successes relevant to the Convention. Through regional conservation and restoration programs, UNEP is enhancing ecological connectivity for key migratory species in the Congo Basin and the Great Green Wall in the Sahel. UNEP is also supporting targeted initiatives for jaguars and Central Asian mammals, and we continue to strengthen the science policy interface, ensuring that CMS-listed species are prioritized in national planning. Beyond the fieldwork, our administrative foundation is equally critical. UNEP provides the essential back-office stability, delivering the financial oversight, human resources, and risk management that empower the Secretariat to operate efficiently and focus on its core mandate. As we look to 2030, our shared focus must be on implementation. UNEP is deeply proud of our enduring partnership with CMS, and we remain dedicated to supporting your efforts to ensure migratory species thrive for generations to come. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, UNEP. Thank you, distinguished delegates. Lastly, I propose, in accordance with the Secretariat, that the Bureau meets tomorrow at 6 p.m. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., not today. and I look forward to welcoming all delegates to the Champions Night and reception offered by the government of Brazil. I will now adjourn the plenary of the conference. Please remain in your seats for the opening of the Committee of the Whole. Thank you very much.
Bonjour, Excellence.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I'm extremely honored to be here as the chair of the Committee of the Whole of the COP15, and I'm looking forward to us being able to ensure that this COP succeeds on every level. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the government and people of Brazil for hosting us so warmly here since we arrived in Campo Grande, and for the excellent arrangements for the meeting. My congratulations and thanks also go to the Secretariat for their work in preparing the conference, all the documents for our conference. As you're aware, we have a very heavy workload and a lot of items on our agenda, and we have a very limited amount of time, 1 week. So we must work together in as smartly as possible to ensure we can cover all the items on our agenda. So first of all, I would like to ensure that we manage time, and so I would call on delegates to keep their interventions concise and to focus on the essential points, and wherever possible to avoid the restating of positions that have already been made. They may support positions that have been presented without needing to go into all the rationale behind that. Interventions should not exceed 3 minutes for parties and 2 minutes for observers. I would also encourage regional and coordinated statements wherever possible. This discipline will be essential if we want to complete our work in an orderly and inclusive manner, allowing several parties to be able to take part. I propose we first establish the working groups needed for the week and then begin our consideration of the budget and related strategic and institutional matters. I would also like to underline that I am very conscious that smaller delegations may not be able to attend every working group, in particular those that are taking place in parallel. And that is why I encourage delegations to coordinate closely with regional groups so that they can communicate their comments when they cannot be present in person at a working group. And in line with the meeting schedule and the proposed organization of work, I would like to propose the establishment of the following working groups. First of all, a budget working group to consider agenda items 14.2 and 14.3 on our agenda. I would also like to form a working group
For translation, I will wait a bit.
Please give us a moment. Can people hear the English booth? The interpreters are asking if you can hear the English booth.
Thank you.
I would also like to form an aquatic working group to consider all items under Agenda 25, which covers all aquatic species conservation issues. And it will consider any relevant proposals and concerted actions. I would also like to establish an avian working group, which would cover all items under Agenda Item 26, which is related to avian species conservation issues. It would consider any relevant proposals and concerted actions. And finally, I'd like to establish a terrestrial working group which will consider all items under Agenda Item 27 on terrestrial species conservation issues, and it would also consider any relevant proposals and concerted actions. In establishing these groups now, we will be able to allow the Committee of the Whole to begin with the broad policy discussion, while enabling smaller groups to take up more detailed drafting and negotiation outside the Committee of the Whole. I am pleased to note that in order to assist delegates, the Secretariat has made available on the COP15 website a document with the proposed initial order that agenda items will be taken in the 3 taxonomic working groups. Lastly, an institutional and cross-cutting issues working group which will include the strategic plan. This working group will convene to discuss only those items that are not resolved here in the Committee of the Whole. At the end of each agenda item, I will confirm the next step for those documents. Now, I would like to note that the Secretariat has developed a proposed schedule aimed at minimizing the overlap of the various working groups. This is aimed at the 3 taxonomic working groups and the institutional and cross-cutting working group. I would like to ask the Secretariat to display the proposed schedule, and updates on the schedule for the working groups will be provided on a daily basis. The Committee of the Whole may, of course, establish additional contact groups as the need arises. Now I would ask for your agreement to the establishment of these working groups.
Does the committee agree to the creation of the working groups I have just mentioned?
Patrick ook, denk ik.
L'Union européenne a la parole.
The European Union, you have the floor. Thank you, Chair.
About the agenda items that will be addressed in the budget group. Because we understood that the agenda item 14.3 on resource mobilization would be discussed in the Committee of the Whole and not in the budget working group. So we would appreciate your clarification. Thank you.
I thank the European Union. Indeed, the item on resource mobilization will be considered within the Committee of the Whole and not within the budget working group. Brazil, you have the floor.
For the floor, before your clarification, to agree with what has been said by the speaker before me regarding the pertinence of discussing resource mobilization in the count directly and not in the budget committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. I see no further requests for the floor. May I therefore consider that the committee has adopted the establishment of these working groups? It is hereby decided. Thank you very much.
Alors, donc, dans le même sens.
In the same vein, and as regards the coordination of these groups, the Secretariat has appointed chairs for each of the working groups. The Budget Working Group will be chaired by the United Kingdom. The Aquatic Working Group will be chaired by the COP-appointed councillor, Barry Baker. The Avian Task Force will be chaired by the COP-appointed councillor, Rob Clay. The Terrestrial Working Group will be chaired by Zimbabwe, and the Cross-Cutting Working Group will be chaired by the two COP-appointed councillors, Des Thompson and Ruth Cromie. Can I ask whether there are any further comments at this stage before we move on to the next items? I see no request for the floor. Therefore, I take it that we can move on with our agenda. As of tomorrow, I wish to inform you that we will begin each committee of the whole session with the report of the Credentials Committee, reports from the working groups which have just been established, and the approval of any available conference room papers and the daily report. This will ensure that all delegations remain fully informed of progress throughout the week and that the committee can track outstanding matters on a day-by-day basis. Moving on to how we will handle documents. First of all, when there are no changes proposed to a document before the Committee of the Whole, I will understand that as an agreement on the adoption of the draft annex as presented in the pre-session document, the document which has already been published on the website. Where delegations propose very minor changes, these changes will be captured by the Secretariat in a conference room paper, a CRP, for further consideration by the Committee of the Whole at the next day or session. Where further discussion is clearly needed, I will refer the matter to the relevant working group, which will prepare a conference room paper for further consideration at the COP. The language version of the conference room paper, the CRP, will be posted in English, French and Spanish at the same time and will be available in Word format in the meeting document page under in-session documents. I would also like to draw delegates' attention to the process for proposed text changes to documents submitted to the Committee of the Whole, in particular for those documents that will not be referred directly to the taxonomic working groups in the coming days. Any proposed addition, deletion or amendment to a document must be read out clearly in this committee so that all delegations remain fully informed. This will ensure transparency and will give all parties the opportunity to engage with proposed changes before any decision is taken. All proposed changes will need to be sent to the Secretariat to the address cop15@cms.int. And once we reach the items which have been referred to the taxonomic working groups, depending on their status in the ongoing working groups, I will advise on the next steps. I will now ask the Secretariat to make a short announcement on how the Secretariat will handle some proposed changes to documents. Please, go ahead.
To two proposed changes in terminology across all affected CMS COP15 documents. These changes will be made for consistency, and as had been proposed earlier by the Chair of the Scientific Committee. First, regarding the term Indigenous peoples and local communities. When this term is used in COP documents, it will appear in lowercase following the practice adopted at the Convention on Biological Diversity. Second, where there is already reference in a draft decision to needing additional resources to undertake a proposed activity, the Secretariat will standardise the phrase to read, subject to the availability of resources. To reiterate, the Secretariat will make these changes to all affected documents without delegates needing to point them out each time. Thank you, Chair.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Melanie, for these clarifications. Are there any questions on this before I proceed? I see no request for the floor. I take it that we may move on to the substantive items on our agenda. Now we have the item on the execution of the CMS budget for the biennium 2024 to 2025. Document 14.1, and I now invite the Secretariat to introduce document 14.1 on the execution of the budget. You have the floor, Secretariat, please.
Next slide. Secretariat prepared UNEP CMS /COP15, document 14.1, execution of budget 2024 and 25. The document reflected status of contributions as of October 2025 and estimated expenditures of 2025 in addition to actual expenditure of 2024. Since substantive number of contributions were paid after posting document 14.1. The presentation reflects updated status of contributions as of 22nd of March 2026, apart from updated expenditures of 2025. As adopted in the Resolution 14.2, Financial and Administrative Matters, 133 parties are expected to pay 3 million for 2024 and 3 million for 2025. By end of October 2025, Secretariat received 2.8 million for 2024, 2.3 million for 2025. After October 2025, 594,000 was received for 2025, whereas 45,000 was received for 2024 by CMS Trust Fund. Consequently, 152,000 euro is due to be paid by 45 parties for 2024. For 2025, 58 parties are outstanding to pay 170,000 euro to CMS Trust Fund. Apart from unpaid contribution for 2024 and 2025, CMS Trust Fund still lacks unpaid assessed contribution of 510,000 as of March 2026, out of which 215,000 is attributed to 34 parties for the previous triennium, 2021-23. 23 parties are due to pay 153,000 for 2018 in 2020, and 14 parties are due to pay 140,000 prior to the period for 2018. Secretariat also prepared the chart showing the trend of arrears starting from 31st December 2023, which was the beginning period of the current budget for 2026, 24, and 2026. By end of 2023, 38 parties had arrears of 3 years or more to CMS Trust Fund, amounting to 542,000 euro. At the end of December 2024, the number of parties with 3 years or more arrears and the amount due remained as same as the previous year. By end of December 2025, 31 parties had arrears of 3 years or more, amounting to 583,000. As of March 2026, 669,000 are due to be paid by 34 parties with arrears of 3 years and more. According to the resolution 14.2, COP14 adopted the budget for 2024 amounting to 3 million, and for 2025 amounting to 3 million, resulting in a total of 6.1 million for the biennium. Due to the confirmed timeline of COP15 in March 2026, Secretariat obtained an approval from Chair of the Standing Committee to transfer 2026 budget for servicing of governing bodies and travel of Session Committee for Scientific Council to 2025 in order to facilitate travel and logistical arrangement of these meetings. Small transfer was also approved by Chair of the Standing Committee for Staff Development in relation to the CMS staff retreat, which took place in October 2025. As December 2025, 6.8 million euro was reported as expenditures for 2024 and 2025, with implementation rate of 95%. The unspent balance related to the servicing of governing bodies, including travel, have been rephased to the fiscal year 2026. During the intersessional period 2024 and 25, Secretariat obtained approval from 56 meeting of Standing Committee and Chair of Standing Committee for the use of funding from Trust Fund balance to accommodate temporary needs to support COP15, as well as to address the needs of CMS online database species management. In addition, Secretariat received approval for temporary administrative officer and the cost of report writer for 6th Session Committee for Scientific Council meeting to be funded by Trust Fund balance. In total, 734,000 euro was approved as drawdown from Trust Fund balance in 2024 and in 2025. As of 31st December 2025, 421,000 euro was reported as expenditure for the biennium, resulting unspent balance of 312,000. These unspent balances are mainly related to the temporary administrative officer and documents officer. As of January 2024, opening cash balance of CMS Trust Fund amounted to 3.2 million, excluding working capital reserve of 500,000 and the contributions paid in advance at that time. During the sessional period 2024 and 2025, a total of 6.1 million euro was received by CMS Trust Fund. Updated expenditure of 2024 and 25 amounted to 6.9 million, resulting in a revised cash balance of 2.7 million euros. Please note that this balance doesn't include the working capital reserve of 500,000 and the contributions paid in advance for 2026 and future years. Action requested to the COP15 to take note of the report on the implementation of the budget and give comments and advice as necessary to the Secretariat. Secretariat also urges the parties with arrears to settle their outstanding contributions in accordance with paragraph 7 of CMS Resolution 14.2. Thank you.
Merci infiniment le secrétariat.
Thank you very much to the Secretariat for this detailed presentation. May I now ask whether there are any parties wishing to take the floor to react to this presentation? I see no request for the floor. With your permission, I take it we can move on to the next item on our agenda, which relates to the budget for the triennium 2027 to 2029 and the programme of work for the intersessional period between COP15 and COP16 of this convention. I invite the Secretariat to please present document 14.2. Thank you very much, Chair.
Some slides about the budget proposal that we have provided for this Conference of the Parties. First, I want to describe a little bit of the context that we see. We know that these are not the easiest financial times for many countries, and yet we believe that nonetheless we need to ensure that CMS and its work is fit for purpose, and that is the approach that we brought to this. We tried to be very mindful and careful about what we proposed, and we can explain in detail, some of the thinking and the numbers that went behind this in the budget working group. Looking at CMS, and you can already see from the reports that have been given today and by the documents that are before you for this COP, that CMS really does play a unique and compelling role in addressing the conservation of biodiversity and the drivers of environmental degradation through this lens of migratory species and their habitats. And we're making a difference on the ground. We also directly contribute, the work under CMS directly contributes to the achievements of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, as well as other priorities, including our work as a leader on the cross-cutting issue of ecological connectivity, which is, of course, the theme of this COP. We've also provided, as you've just seen from the slides that my colleague just went through, that we have a really effective track record for utilizing our core budget. We're fiscally responsible, we're very, very careful and mindful. I mentioned earlier we had an audit and we passed it with a few recommendations, but overall very positive. And the core budget largely covers a relatively small number of staff that we have in the Secretariat to deliver on a huge amount of work. But with those staff, having the right amount of staff, and we do have some proposals to complement what we have, we can multiply the results. But you can't do something with nothing. You can't multiply if you have no one to initiate. So this is where our proposals, which I'll talk about in a minute, are coming from. So now more than ever, when we look at also the science, and it's telling us that biodiversity continues to be declining, the pressures on migratory species are continuing, the trends are not in a good place, we need to make sure that CMS is equipped appropriately to carry out the work on your behalf. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to run through the history of our proposals for this COP. Under the rules of procedure for the COP, actually, yes, under the resolution of the COP 14.2 on the budget, we need to provide a document for this meeting 90 days before the opening of the COP on the budget. And we did that on time in December. Shortly after we published that document, at the very end of the year, and then again in January, we received a notification from the UN headquarters about changes that they had done with regards to the Bonn duty station. And this is something that's routine. The UN has offices all around the world, and so they're routinely looking at the cost of living and salaries to make sure that there's some equilibrium and whether the cost of living has really gotten very much out of whack with the staff salaries. So it's a long process, and we did not know that this was going to happen until it happened. So we had published the document, and then we learned, in fact, that there was going to be a fairly significant increase to the salaries for our general service staff. So when we learned this, we realized that we needed to provide for the COP a revised document because first we needed to be sharing that information with you because it has a big impact on our budget. But second, and most importantly, we realized that we needed to make some changes to what we proposed because if we had simply added those costs, we think that the budget proposal would have been very difficult to defend. So we essentially took it on ourselves to start to find other areas to cut in the REV document that we provided to you. Now, I want to say that in scenario 3, this is where we put some additional capacity for the work of the Secretariat, and we still need that capacity. I mean, the fact that we reduced what we originally suggested does not mean that we don't need it. But I want to explain how we propose to meet that need in a much more cost-effective way, and I'll get to that in a moment when I talk about scenario 3. Now, this slide, what we've done is we wanted to make it also very transparent about the changes that we did. So when we produced the REV document, which was done in February this year, we also had indication of how the numbers changed. So that's in the REV document. You can see the differences in there. But here what you see is the totals. And we put, since scenario 1 is, it's about matching what was agreed by our last COP. So that's, there's no change from that total number. Scenario 2, you see that the original document was one figure, and then if you look at the REV document, the increase over the zero nominal is about 4% more than the original document, and all of that is attributable to those higher salaries. Okay. By the way, there was also a retroactive element of the salaries, and of course that was just a moment in time, so that's that's accounted for. But this is the total. So what we did in scenario 1 is we looked at, in scenario 2, we looked at ways to reduce some of the costs that we had already included in that scenario. Moving to scenario 3, as I mentioned, no, sorry, not yet. I want to draw attention to the fact, what we also did in scenario 3, as I just mentioned, is we reduced the proposal for new positions, new capacity, and in fact, the total that we are now proposing is less in terms of the percentage increase. So originally, our proposal had a 27% increase over the zero nominal, and now it's 25%. So we did that also with a view of being thoughtful and reasonable about this, given that we've just been handed, something beyond our control in terms of costs, and we still do have the needs for stronger capacity, as well as taking account of inflation in our budget. Okay, so next slide, please. So now I'm going to briefly walk through the 3 budget scenarios. So the first budget scenario is our zero nominal growth, and we prepared this consistent with how we've done so in the past, and that is what the resolution requires us to do. That means that we produced a budget where the total number is the same as what was agreed by COP14. To achieve this budget, that means that we had to find cuts, obviously, because we only applied a 2% increase, again, consistent with our past practice, only for salary, but for no other items. So the budget does not account for inflation overall. In order to make the numbers add up, we had to find places to cut, and we proposed cutting essentially most of the budget lines, other than for basic operational needs and the staff. Other than that, it doesn't mean that the work would not happen. It means that we'd have to raise voluntary funds to make these budget lines to have sufficient money to carry them out. So going to the next slide, we have budget scenario 2. Now what we did with budget scenario 2 is first, again, with past practice, we applied a 2% inflation rate across all of the budget items, except we actually did not do so for 2 items to keep, again, the costs down. We included some real costs that come from increased costs of our standing committee and sessional committee meetings. These costs are due to 2 different factors primarily. One is that at the last COP, there had been a change in the eligibility criteria to fund travel. And so we had a number of eligible travel that was larger than we had in the past, and the budget, however, was smaller. And so we had to find some ways to cover that, and are now bringing the proper numbers for this COP, knowing what that criteria has implied in terms of costs. There's also been some increased costs in the duty station at Bonn from the conference services, the rooms, the catering, this kind of thing, that they're hard costs that we have to pay. Now I want to bring to your attention that we have included in our budget proposal, both the original one and the REV document, a small level of funding for 2 specific core responsibilities of the Secretariat. And the reason we did this is because when you look at the convention text, under the article that establishes the Secretariat, there are several items that we are told to do by the treaty text. And it does not, in our view, make sense for us to have to try to fundraise for those. These are core activities. They'll be repeated for every COP. And let me explain what they are. The first is about providing information to the parties at every COP on the progress of implementation of the objectives of the convention and the decisions under the convention. That's the analysis of national reports, as well as the online system that we have for the reporting, gathering the surveys from and inputs from the parties. So the costs are relatively small, but we feel that they should be included in the core budget. Second, there's an obligation under the convention that the Secretariat should keep up to date data on the range states for CMS species that are listed. And we have looked at this, and we see that there is some improvements that are needed. We need to be updating this. It's not being well updated on our website, and we have identified a solution, again, for not that much money, that we think is vital, though, that we provide the correct information for all countries and stakeholders. So again, in the revised version of this document, we reduced these items. So we went from kind of what we thought was the best model to sort of the lowest possible model that we could propose, so we could deliver on these and cut back on some areas that we had envisioned originally. Okay, so now we go to scenario 3. So scenario 3 is built on scenario 2, and it adds simply some proposed funding for some key areas for additional capacity of the Secretariat. Again, we had proposed all of these in the original budget, and we still need them, but we have changed in these three, the aquatic unit, science unit, and the contractor. We are proposing to only have a single regular staff position, which is a P2 level program officer for the aquatic unit, and the others would be filled through a contractor, which is a less expensive option, and it's a temporary option. Now, on the aquatic P2, I want to really make the case for that here. Let me first explain that within the Secretariat, you probably know we have different taxa teams. We have one on terrestrial, avian, and aquatic. For terrestrial, we have a P4 and a P2 staff person. And then we are able, through voluntary funds that we can mobilize with those staff and multiply the work that we're doing by bringing in consultancies and in-kind support, and we're successful at that. In the terrestrial area, we have a P4 and a P2, and we actually have a 1.5 P2 because we have a half a P2 working on the CAMI. So that also is well equipped and has been successful in also multiplying effort and building out some project funding and personnel. In the aquatic unit, we only have a P4 who is full-time working on CMS. And it's been this way for some time. We need to have a P2 to support that unit. And there's never been a time when that's been more true than now, when we have the BB&J agreement about to start to be implemented, and we need to be ready to participate in that, which we have not been able to do, by the way, because we have not had the staff to do it. We have deep sea mining that could be coming in the future. We need to be ready to address those impacts as well. And we've also highlighted that 97% of CMS fish species are threatened globally. And so these are the species of the greatest importance in terms of overall, in terms of priorities. We need to be equipped. So this is my number one ask to the COP, is to approve so that we can hire a P2 for the aquatic unit and not have to rely on finding ways to get things done or not getting them done at all. Now turning to the other two proposals, one for the science unit. So you heard earlier today, we had 17 working groups going on under the Scientific Council. We had 30 meetings. We have one person who is our scientific officer who is working on all of this. because there was so much work, we actually went to the standing committee and asked, can we please use savings to help us? And we found some other, just sort of temporary measures so that we could actually get all of this work done. It's not sustainable. And so we are asking the COP to approve, again, a P2 level position that is not a regular staff job, but a consultancy. And so we would hire someone. We can revisit that at the next COP. It's not a regular post, but it's really needed to support the work of this COP and all of the cross-cutting threats that we're trying to address. Finally, under the Information and Communications Unit, we do not have anyone on staff that can help who's dedicated to working on the website, on keeping our IT up to date, making sure we're delivering, and there's so much of our work for the parties and all the stakeholders is making sure we have a proper website that's functional, that you can find the information that you're looking for, and that has also not been at the pace that I had hoped. And so again, this is a assistant, so it's a G-level contractor, and I think that the amount is pretty reasonable. Finally, I want to draw to your attention that in the original proposal, we had also proposed a P2 level staff member to help on to lead on the document production for the Secretariat. Now this is, you know that holding meetings is one of the core responsibilities of the Secretariat. Yet we do not have anyone on staff that does this full time. And it's really, it's actually astounding. If you look at other treaties, for example, our sister treaty CITES, they have a P4 level staff member who does this. And other treaties have this kind of capacity. So again, I actually, to reduce our costs in the proposed budget for the REV, I actually cut this out completely. But I have to say I have some regrets, and I want to call it to your attention because I really think we need also to fund this, and we can do so through a consultancy, and we can come with the numbers for you. They'd essentially be the same budget level as what we're proposing for the science unit. Okay, so that's my pitch. Now I have one more slide, and actually two more slides, sorry. So first, on the scale of contributions, we've also made available in both documents, both versions, the assessed contributions that would be allocated to the parties. These are based on the current UN scale of assessments that were adopted by the General Assembly in December 2024. And then the last slide, just briefly, we also in the Secretariat did a very thorough job of looking at the draft resolution. And by the way, we also did a lot of work to look at what other treaties have, biodiversity treaties, as well as others in their resolutions on various clauses. So we wanted to really make sure we knew what might be unique for CMS or what was not in our resolution that made sense. So we are proposing one new operative text, which I think makes a lot of sense. It's really more administrative, which is simply to give the executive secretary the authority to be able to move money between the years of the budget. So our budget is done on a 3-year basis. This would allow the executive secretary to transfer the budget for meetings of the convention bodies. So that could be the COP, the Scientific Council, Sessional Committee, and the Standing Committee, simply because we don't always know when they're going to happen. And so rather than have to come back to the Standing Committee or the chair of the Standing Committee for permission to move that money, it's simply saying, can we use it this year instead of next year, and have that flexibility. Two last points. First, COP15 requested that the Standing Committee do some work on a few areas of the resolution. One of these have to do with the eligibility of countries who are in arrears of 3 or more years, and their eligibility for things like travel, to hold office in a convention body, and to vote and so on. But we had never defined what does that mean, holding office, what does it mean, convention body. So the Standing Committee discussed this at their 56th meeting, and on the topic of what is a convention body, the Standing Committee agreed that these would be the COP itself, the Standing Committee, and the Sessional Committee of the Scientific Council. That amendment is reflected in paragraph 11 of the draft resolution. Finally, the Standing Committee also discussed this topic of what does it mean to hold office. And I want to draw to your attention an omission from the budget document that's important. The Standing Committee actually did not resolve this, did not come to a consensus. There were two options that were discussed, so let me just describe them here. Option one is that holding office would mean the position of chair, vice chair, being a member, or being an alternate. Option two would limit those positions to being the chair or the vice chair. And this will come up, it's relevant for what is paragraph 12 of the draft resolution. So again, the documentation, the Rev document with the resolution only reflects one of these options. This was our omission, and apologies for that, but the budget working group needs to look at both of these options in their discussions, and of course the COP as well when it comes back to the COW. I think that's it, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your patience. I just wanted to walk through it slowly to make sure everything is clear. Thank you.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much, Madame Amy, for giving us this detailed report, which looks at the various budget scenarios that have been proposed and the thought and logic that was behind them. So now we will open a general discussion on this subject. We will have more detailed coverage of that in the working group, which is going to be covering the matter of budget. So the floor is open for those who wish to take the floor. Distinguished delegates, with your permission, I see we have no request for the floor, so we'll move on to the next presentation from the Secretariat, which looks at the proposed program of work. The Secretariat has the floor.
Which is the program of work for the intersessional period between COP15 and COP16. The program of work, unlike the budget proposals before you that cover the period 2027-2029, as the budget adopted by the last COP still covers 2026, the program of work covers the period 2026-2029, as COP15 is going to adopt new mandates, and those are going to be reflected and are already reflected in the program of work. The program of work is based on a template which was approved by the Standing Committee at its 56th session last year, which took into account comments and concerns raised by parties during the process of the development of the current program of work. A program of work follows a results-based methodology linked to the goals and targets of the strategic plan and is compatible with the integrated planning, management and reporting system of UMOJA, which is the Enterprise Resource Planning System of the United Nations Secretariat. And we are bound to use this tool now to capture all our expenditures. The program of work contains references to existing mandates, including ongoing initiatives such as action plans, concerted actions, MOUs, with the exception of the largest MOUs under CMS, which have their own dedicated personnel and budgetary processes. But also includes existing resolutions that are still in force, as well as proposed resolutions and decisions which are for the consideration of this meeting, which are addressed to the Secretariat, as well as to the Scientific Council and Standing Committee in case these require the support of the Secretariat. The program of work also, because of that, it provides a comprehensive pictures of all the mandates that the Secretariat has. The program of work also shows budgets itemized by objects of expenditures, such as travel, meetings, or personnel. The program of work is integrated with the budget. Therefore, you have before you 3 program of work tables which are linked to the budget scenarios. The POW contains estimates and sources, both coming from the proposed core budget for 2027-2029, as well as from voluntary contributions, with an indication whether these resources have already been secured with the respective sources or whether they are still to be raised. As I mentioned earlier, the core budget figures for 2026 are those approved by the last COP. No priority ranking has been proposed by the Secretariat this time, as it was discussed and agreed by the Standing Committee. And the program of work will be updated in the course of this meeting to reflect the final set of mandates and activities adopted by this meeting. With regards to the costing, for a number of items and activities of the program of work, we indicated a single figure. And this is in cases in which the cost is either fixed or known. For instance, we already know that we are planning to organize a meeting for which we know the location, the timing, what is needed, and also the number of participants, or funded participants. So in this case, it's easier to make a more precise estimate. When this information is not available, whether it's for a meeting or for a study that is planned to be carried out, we provided a range of costs. It is to be noted that within this range of cost range, the lowest budget figure represents the minimum amount required to deliver the activity. So just to be sure that we can deliver the activity with the lowest amount. As mentioned by the Executive Secretary, the budget document was revised after the 90 days deadline, and therefore the program of work was revised as well, and all the changes have been highlighted in gray. Some of the items in the program of work related to scenario 1 and 2 show figures both under the core budget, which is MSL, those columns related to MSL, and under voluntary contributions, the columns related to MVL. And the figures shown under MSL correspond to the amounts that we allocated in scenario 1 and 2 respectively. Whereas in the MVL columns, we indicated the additional resources required to reach scenario 3. This means that ideally, we will secure the funding that we propose in scenario 3. Ideally, that would be covered by the core budget. If not, it could be complemented with voluntary contributions. And the program of work related to scenario 2 or 3, the text and figures in red reflects the proposals of the budget scenarios, which indicate either a new budget item or an increase of cost in the budget item compared to the previous scenario. As mentioned earlier, the program of work will be revised in the course of the meeting, also to reflect the budget approved for the next intersessional period. Thank you very much.
Merci infiniment.
I thank you very much, Ms. Laura, for this presentation. It is also detailed and it covers a great deal of information on the program of work, and it's very important in looking at the content and the process that we're undergoing. Dear delegates, it's nearly 6 p.m. So we just have a very short time before 1800 hours. So maybe we could receive any comments on this agenda item before we close.
Donc, chers collègues, distingués délégués, je vois pas.
Dear colleagues, distinguished delegates, I see no request for the floor. And as the program of work is also linked to the budget, this work will continue within the working group. And so we are reaching the end of our day. And if I may, I'd like to ask the Secretariat to make some announcements. I will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would like to inform you that there are no working groups tonight. I'm sorry for some confusion. There were some slides put up outside earlier that implied there were, but then they will start tomorrow lunchtime. The Secretariat has published a note on our website with the items that have been assigned to each of the working groups, and this will be updated as necessary. I would like to remind all delegates that all written submissions, any proposals for text, should be sent only to the email account cop15@cms.int, and sent as soon as possible. To be sent in advance is very useful to us. Our team will make sure the written submissions are sent to the relevant program officers and the working groups. Yes, please send your statements in advance so that they can be sent to the interpreters. I'd also like to remind delegates that tonight we are celebrating our champions at the Reuben Gill at 19:30 this evening. The event is open to everybody, and it will be followed by a reception kindly organised by the Government of Brazil. Buses are provided to bring everybody to the venue starting from 18:30, and they will also take people from the reception to the hotels that are on the bus route. Thank you, Chair.
Merci infiniment, Madame.
Thank you very much, Ms. Melanie. We will, I think we have now come to the closing of our meeting of this session. And I'd like to thank everyone. And we will resume the work of the Committee of the Whole tomorrow at 9:30 in this room once more, tomorrow morning, 9:30. So thank you all very much. Enjoy your evening and see you tomorrow morning. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.